There we go. Sorry about being a little bit late here. I was having trouble, I don't know, getting the connection to work, something we all have happen periodically. So hopefully people will get a chance to join me in a minute. I'm Dr. Kathy Marshak, and this is Dr. Kathy's Office Hours. If you do join me, it's always helpful to me anyway to let me know in the comment section that you've arrived, that you can hear me. And if you have a question or a comment, put it in the comment section too, because I will definitely answer the comments either during the live or I go back later and check and see if anybody has a question for me. Oh, good. So there's people are starting to join, and like I said, please let me know if you can hear me, see me, and if this is all working. Hi, Diana. Good to see you. Okay, good. Then let me go ahead and get started here. I'm sorry I came late. I really wasn't late, but I was dealing with some kind of technical glitch, and it wasn't letting me in, and now it finally opened up, and things are starting. One of the things I wanted to say as people are joining is that Facebook is a public platform, and so anybody can drop in if you're on Facebook, if you've joined Facebook. However, the events that I'm talking about a lot of different things that are free during our conference, but sometimes people will ask me how can they join up for one of the events that are on my calendar, but they're not members of the private forums, either the meetup group or the premium community forum for my courses. If you're a member of any of those parts of things, then you can attend one of the events. But if you're just watching from Facebook Live the first time and you're not a member, you do need to register, and I put that information in the little write-up at the top. So what we talk about today, though, is perfectly open and free to ask me questions about. You don't have to be a member of our private group. Hi, Kim. This is great. This is her first time. His first time? Her first time. Kimberly. It must be her. At any rate, today's topic is, when was the last time you laughed? Do you feel invisible and isolated? So I'll tell you a story about myself in just a minute, but let me read what this is about today. I'm going to talk about how you may feel invisible and isolated, and the toll that constant stress and trauma causes. I'll talk about all the power struggles in your neurodivergent relationship and how that keeps you in a constant state of stress. We'll talk about feeling sick, tired, and alone, and how to find hope for a better life. Now, you need to know this is a pretty common theme. Okay, this is not new. This isn't something that just happens once in a while. Most everybody who's neurotypical or neurodiverse in a neurodivergent relationship reports to me feeling lonely and isolated for different reasons. And we're going to talk about that in today's Facebook Live, and also in the as I tell you about the various conferences that are happening for the next month. These are the conferences that are happening in July. Now, I want to kind of circle back to what I was saying before most people got here, is that this is a public forum, and so anybody can attend. Neurodiverse, neurotypical, family, friends, colleagues, next door neighbors, anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about neurodivergent relationships, they're welcome to come to the Facebook Live and learn more about resources. But what I've also done is put a couple of links in the write-up here that can direct you to what are all the resources that are available. For example, there's the Meetup group, and Meetup is an organization that encourages people to get together and talk about common things. I started using Meetup back in 2016, I think it was. Might have been 2009. It's been a long time ago anyway. And it brought people together from all over the world. It wasn't just for local folks. And this is a place to kind of dip your toe in and start learning a little bit more about whether you are like everybody else who are living these lives, and I think you're going to find that you are. And then in addition to Meetup, I have online courses. I have a premium community forum for people who actively involve themselves in talking with each other online and attending private conferences. And then in the courses, I also host private conferences for people to attend to talk more. In the courses, they're for both neurotypical and neurodiverse, so that you get to cross affect each other. You get to find out what other people think, not just somebody who's neurotypical or somebody who's autistic. And by the way, those terms mean something special to me. I tend to define neurodiverse as people on the spectrum, or they could also have ADHD, but the neurodiverse element is mostly an empathy issue. That's pretty profound, so we can talk more about that. And neurotypical are non-spectrum people, and they have a good command of the empathy triad. That's what I call it. Neurodivergent, I know a lot of people think of that as referring to a neurodiverse person, but neurodivergent to me means that these two operating systems of neurotypical and neurodiverse are clashing, colliding, or pulling apart, diverging. They don't work well together without guidance. They can work well if you get some support. Hi, Susan. Just saw Susan join us. Diana, Kimberly, Susan, I'll make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, so, this idea about laughing too. Oh, wait, I got one more thing. I know that people often will write to me, how can I join a specific conference that you have on your list? And if you're a member of our private groups, then you just go to your student dashboard and you register for the event. If you're not a member of our private group, you aren't allowed to attend these meetings. I try to keep them private and confidential, and one way to do that is to make sure you register as a member of the group so that so that you're free to really talk as openly as possible about this subject. Okay, so I want to run down the conferences because they reflect the topic for today about laughing. In fact, I'll tell you the story first. I remember the day that I was walking with a neighbor, and she said something that I found amusing, and I felt myself laughing from deep down inside and just roaring with laughter. And it was so startling because it had been years. I'd been in a neurodivergent relationship for 25 years and really didn't know how to laugh anymore. Didn't know how to have joy. I had been so traumatized by the misunderstandings, miscommunications, gaslighting, and a variety of things that were going on. I was so traumatized that I didn't have any joy left. So this is nobody's fault. It's that we didn't know, especially when I was younger, we had no idea that these relationships created such trauma. Now we know differently, even though the word is still slow to spread among adults with high-functioning autism and their sweethearts. Okay, so here's the conference topics. The first one is Wednesday, July 9th. It's called Sick, Tired, and Alone. Is there any hope for a better life? And again, as you can see, that's part of this theme. If you are daily stressed by a neurodivergent relationship, chances are you're sending too many stress hormones and other kinds of chemicals through your body, and that causes illness. It causes inflammation, and it will attack parts of your health, your body that can cause severe health problems like arthritis and migraine headaches, and maybe an illness you never thought you had before. Perhaps you're pre-diabetic and it just pushes you over the edge. So this is not a good thing, and I want to talk about that in this July 9th conference. Sick, Tired, and Alone, is there any hope for a better life? And yes, there is hope, as long as we keep educating ourselves and meeting in groups like this, talking and finding out who's there. And when I notice that people are welcoming a new member who's not sure, what's up, but what you start to find out is that everything I talk about and the other members start talking about sounds like they've been living your life, because we're looking at patterns that emerge in interaction with neurodivergent relationships. The patterns are the same, even though the people might be different and the language is different and the culture is different. The next conference, by the way, these are small group video conferences. And they're video conferences, but I don't record the video. I do save the audio and store that at the premium forums so that members can go back and listen again privately, but they're not publicly available. So the second one is, I don't have time for self-care. How can I juggle everything as well as me? You might think this is odd. It's not like you don't have time for self-care because you're just bad at self-care. It's that you really don't have time. These relationships require hours and hours more of communication time, simply because the communication is so fraught with misunderstanding. And it's tiring to keep explaining yourself or trying to get past the other person's defensiveness, that it just wears you out. And so a lot of times what we do is we just don't take care of ourselves because we literally are exhausted by the end of the day. So what this conference is going to be talking about is putting yourself first, because if you don't, you won't have time to take care of anybody else. But it's going to be difficult because the demands on you are really intense. Okay, so the third video conference is, how do I take control despite the power struggles in my neurodivergent relationship? How do I take control? And this is really an interesting discussion question. A lot of times, neurotypicals feel swept along by the neurodiverse tendency to be very transactional. Neurodiverse people don't read the contextual cues very well, so they tend to enter a discussion as if it's a more of a debate. They tell you their position, they might listen to your position, and then begin to tell you what's wrong with your position if you're neurotypical. And so the problem is you may not want to prove who's right and who's wrong. You may just want to share a bit of yourself in the relationship, and instead it's taken on by the other person. Oh, hi, Julie. Everybody's welcoming everybody today. That's really sweet. So what you're taking control of is not the other person. That's what this conference is about. It's about taking control of your ability to do whatever you need to do right then and there to take care of yourself, to bring more laughter into your life, to not let yourself be, pulled into some transactional black and white discussion. Nobody really benefits by that. And I can explain more what that is a little bit later if people have a question about that. Then on the 16th, that was on the 23rd. Then backing up, on the 16th is the free webinar for course members, and it's how to process and communicate emotion in a neurodivergent relationship, and that's on July 16th. How to process and communicate emotion in a neurodiverse relationship. So this is for people, the first three conferences that I talked about, sick, tired, and I don't have time for self-care, and how do I take control, those are all for the neurotypicals in this mix. This is a chance to talk with other neurotypicals and find out how they do it, or at least just get some moral support for the struggle. But it's helpful to find out how people do better. The webinar, free webinar for course members is actually open to both neurodiverse and neurotypical. Both can take the online course, study it, watch it together, and then come into the webinar and talk with each other. They also have their own private community where they can go in and chat with other couples, family members, and so forth. But what's fascinating to me is I find that the neurotypical forum is much more lively than the course forum. And that sort of typical of our relationships. When neurodiverse people are participating, they often keep pulling us towards transactional communication, and it's not the best for interactive dialoguing. So in the meetup group and in the the premium forum, there's more dialoguing going on, and people are learning a ton from each other just based on the kind of things they're noticing. And then there's another thing I've started recently. I've been doing podcasts now for, I don't know, maybe a year. And you can find my podcast, and they're free. You can download them wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also find them on my website. Can link to all of the past ones there. After a podcast, I try to host what I call a podcast after party discussion, so that anybody who's listening to the podcast can come in and then talk about what the podcast might have stirred up for them. And this July's podcast is on July 17th, after party discussion. The after party. The podcast is already posted. Navigating human dynamics with empathy. Navigating human dynamics with empathy. Now, I know you hear from me a lot that people that are neurodiverse do not have empathy, and they don't. Not in the sense of being able to easily and comfortably read between the lines. They need time to think about it, to make notes, to really process what's being discussed, and then they can respond. But neurotypicals can often feel totally isolated when they're not listened to right now as they're talking. So this after-party discussion is talking about how to use alternatives to empathy. One of my members calls himself Empathy Triad Engaged. He says, I don't have empathy, but I'm going to practice all of those empathy steps that I see in the 7-step interface protocol, which is another tool I use. I'm going to practice that stuff so that at least my wife knows that I'm making an effort to connect, even if I'm not terribly good at empathizing. So that's, hopefully you'll listen to the podcast and then come to the after party, but you don't have to. It's just that I lay out a lot of important information in my podcast, and so I think it's helpful. There's other things on the podcast that you can listen to if this one doesn't appeal to you. There's other topics. And then one more thing that I want to tell you about is that Julie, who's here today in our group, I think, Julie is our ambassador. And Julie hosts a monthly get to know you, how to use all the resources video call. And that video call is on July 17th at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So you'll have to look at your time zone. So what she talks about, a lot of times she just talks about the stuff that comes up for members. But it's a great place for new people to go. It's a free call if you're a member of one of the forums. You don't have to pay anything extra for it. And what Julie does is walks you through maybe her story, or she hears somebody else's story and talks about how it affects her, and those kind of things are similar to what she's been through, and other members are welcome to join in. She'll also walk you through all the resources. And remember, I put a link in the post today so that you can go to all the resources that are offered, such as books. I have a number of books that I've written. There's the courses, there's the forums, there's the podcast. And this link helps you know kind of that there's a lot of stuff, which I think can be overwhelming for new people, but Julie helps make it less overwhelming. And another thing that I thought I'd throw at you is that I'm developing a video game. And I've barely started telling people about it. But the video game is called Radiant Empathy, which I think is the pinnacle of learning how to communicate and get past these things like feeling so alone and isolated. And Radiant Empathy, the subtitle of the game is The Journey let's see, how does it go? The journey of heartbreak and healing in neurodivergent relationships. The journey of heartbreak and healing in neurodivergent relationships. And I'm having so much fun doing this game. I started developing the story, the characters, the background, and so I started putting it in a YouTube. So there's 10 YouTubes now, I think. Yeah, 10 YouTubes on the YouTube channel. Just look for Radiant Empathy and my name, and you'll find my playlist there. And the videos themselves might even be a little bit healing because just listening to a story that's similar to your life is really important and helpful. And even though these are characters in a video game and they are, and the story is taking place on a spaceship and other kind of fantastic voyages like that, it doesn't matter. The human issues are the same. Isn't that interesting? The human issues are the same, even if it's animated or even if it's in a different culture from yours. What we're finding is that neurodivergent relationships are confounded by empathy problems. Not a lack of caring or a lack of love or a lack of conscientiousness even. But neurotypicals are super sensitive to the clues that tell them if that other person is ready to engage or not. And if they're not, they might back off and they might try again. Neurodiverse folks don't always recognize those signals, and instead they try to speak to the topic at hand, not necessarily the person. Did I get the time wrong, Julie? I thought I put the right time down. July. Oh, it's July 10th. Oh well, if I've got it wrong, I've got July 17th on my printout, but if it's July 10th, then I would trust Julie because she knows what she's doing. I'm sorry about that. See if anybody else has a comment here. And honestly, I do my best to get things right here, but you can find the schedule on Meetup and on the premium forum and on my calendar. If you go to my website, if you go to any of my websites, you should be able to get to the calendar and see what's being posted. But I'll make a note to myself that it's July 10th, not the 17th. So let's see if we've got anybody that wants to talk about this a little bit. Do you have any questions about, will I ever get my life back? Will there be joy in my life? Will I laugh again? Because I think you can. Let's see if I've got anybody. I don't want to miss anybody yet. So one of the things that happens is that we accommodate people that we love. Right? We keep accommodating, and sometimes we accommodate our own authenticity right off our plate. It's okay to let go of something that's important to you, to not pursue a discussion or not go to the movie because your spouse doesn't really want to see it. It's okay to give them that. But if time and time again it feels like you're giving up you so that the other person is comfortable, that won't work. Right? No. It's cute. Some people are talking about Julie's group over here too, and they say, yes, Julie, we laugh lots, don't we? This is Sandra acknowledging that laughter really is important. And we've got to be able to laugh not just about our relationships, but lots of things in the world, because otherwise we don't survive very well. In fact, it's a kind of an interesting issue that we tend, as we have this survival skill as human beings. We laugh only when we're fully comfortable and we're not feeling any threat. We are wired to notice when things are wrong. or don't fit. They're incongruous. We're wired to notice that. That's an animal survival instinct. If you're walking through the jungle and something doesn't feel right, smell right, sound right, look right, we're alarmed. Our immediate reaction is to take cover or get ready to fight. So if you live like that, you're going to be tired a lot, right? So it's important to keep reminding yourself to do fun things like, yes, Susan said, helps to find friends we can laugh with. You got to laugh because laughter kind of changes your state and reminds you about what life is really about. Debbie said something. I'm sorry, I'm amused by this. It's like it's one of those things that comes up in our homes. She says, "What if your neurodiverse partner wants to adopt a feral cat who's been hanging around, and you do not want another pet? How do you negotiate that?" So let me parse this out a little bit. First of all, the neurodiverse person may feel a sense of really, compassion for this feral cat that's scrawny and flea bitten and maybe needs a home. So they may feel compassionate. I doubt they think about what it's going to take care of the cat. And even if you say, well, I'm not taking care of this cat, I've got too much on my plate already, right? Even if you say something like that, uh, they, they may think you're just unkind, right? Or you don't understand. So I think the first thing you have to do, Debbie, is just say no. No, that doesn't work for me. We already have pets, and I don't want to introduce another animal that might chase away the pets we have, or attack them, or bring in disease. But her question was, how do you negotiate that? First of all, your neurodiverse partner has to be willing to negotiate, and often they're not. They want their position understood and agreed with, and they don't often think about how that's going to affect you. So first of all, you have to say, no, deal's over, I'm not doing that. Then you might be able to walk them through why this is a bad idea. But if you're going to try to negotiate or convince them about your point of view, chances are you're just going to have a debate. So you nix the debate entirely and say, won't debate for you, it's questions off the table. But if you'd like to talk with me about why I don't want that, okay. So it doesn't feel right because with our partners, we feel like things should be in a consensus. We want a consensus model. Right? We want to both take a good look at what it would be like to adopt a feral cat, or even if it's a feral cat that's at the Humane Society, it's really not much different. We both have to agree that this is going to be a change in our home. I hope that helps a little bit. But the bottom line is try to remember they don't ask themselves. People on the spectrum are not immediately aware of how we might feel about things. And they often feel like we're not listening to what's important to them. So you could tell them, I understand that you want to do a kind thing for an animal in need, because that is true. But you might have to consider how this is going to affect your entire family. As a matter of fact, during this time of war and refugees seeking shelter, some people are taking refugees into their homes, so they have war refugees, so that they, have safety. And I've heard stories from my neurodivergent couples where the neurodiverse person felt a sense of incredible need to take care of these folks that had no place to go. But they might be living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 children themselves, and there's really no place to put this family. So it makes sense that it just probably isn't a smart idea. And then if they push for having the refugees living with them, their whole household is more disrupted than it was before. It doesn't mean that you can't do something to help people who are trying to survive a war-torn country. There's plenty you can do, but you have to be able to make it be a reasonable effort. Let's see, I think I saw a couple other comments here. Right. So a couple of people are talking about it's not so easy to talk with just anybody about your lives because a lot of people don't get it and they often want to give you advice about how to be more laid back or not take things so personally. And that's not helpful because that makes you feel guilty for having a problem. You don't need that. And you don't need a therapist who does that either. If the therapist says, well, you just need to learn to relax, it's like, well, probably not the person to help you. Because you're one of these people, the people who are in this group, neurodiverse or neurotypical, you're people who take on the challenge, right? You take on the challenge of how to do my life better and how to be there for my loved ones. Yeah, Susan said, if friends really understand this, I can have rare laughs till you cry and your stomach aches, and that's the best, right? When they do understand, when they get that you are a dynamite person who's excellent at loving and caring for your sweetheart and your children and your parents and all of that, and yet it's a lot of work, well, and those friends aren't afraid to talk about that work. See, a lot of people are fearful of talking about the stress in your life because it's painful for them. So instead, they try to make light of it. I'm sure you've had that experience too. Let's see here. Yeah, so Kimberly is making a really good point here about um, she laughs and feels uninhibited joy with others, but not her neurodiverse spouse. And that's that's tiring. That's stressful for us. That feels bad. We want to laugh and enjoy our life partner too. But chances are they don't get you or don't get your sense of humor until it's much too late if they're tracking at all. By the way, they can become what's more empathy triad engaged. When people on the spectrum realize that they really don't have active empathy in the moment, when they really get that, they want to know, well, what can I do? Because I don't want to leave my partner in the lurch. And so there are steps. They're the 7-step interface protocol. I talk about that in my courses and my books. They can learn the steps of how to be there for you. And even if they're a little off in interpreting what you're saying, if you sense they're trying to be there for you, then you don't feel alone and isolated, right? It's like it reminds me years ago of this couple that were going through a lot of stresses and strains. And it was sometime in the fall, and the neurodiverse husband asked his wife if they should get some airline tickets now, because this would be the Christmas that they go fly to see her parents. Last year was his parents, this year would be her parents. And he wanted to know if he should get some airline tickets now, so when the price was good. And she burst into tears, and she said, I don't know if we're going to be together at Christmas. She was feeling so stressed about the relationship. And he said, oh, that's okay. We can get refundable tickets. We can get refundable tickets. Now, what was interesting is this, he wasn't intending to be funny, but she burst out laughing. The neurotypical spouse burst out laughing as she heard what he did not hear at all her distress about, will the marriage last? He heard that, well, if it doesn't work, then we've got refundable tickets. So what that's about is, just to give you the science of it, he was focusing on the topic. He was looking at contextual cues having to do with how much the tickets cost. He wanted to buy them while the price was low, and that he wanted to buy refundable tickets so that he could save money should they have to turn them in. He was not tracking her comment about how she felt, right? But she burst out laughing, and she said to him, that is so you. She got it. She got that he didn't intend to hurt her, but he certainly missed the point. So she felt okay because he was making an effort, not because he understood her. Right. Oh, is somebody? I'm not gone. Just somebody might have lost some power. Thanks for letting Susan know that you can still hear me, Kimberly. If this happens, I don't know. Sometimes the internet bops in and out. If that happens, just reboot and come back in. We're still here. You're not going to be blocked out. So another thing that I'm really pleased about is that my first book on this topic, Going Over the Edge Life with a Partner with Asperger's Syndrome, that first was published in 2009. And it has been a popular book ever since for our little narrow group. It's not like I'm a best-selling author, but it's been a popular book because it was one of the first books to really come out and let you know that you're not alone, that you might feel like going over the edge, but you don't know why. So what happened is that the book was so old and the publisher folded, and I thought, well, shoot, I'm going to reissue that book and I'm going to update it. So it came out last year as the anniversary edition of Going Over the Edge, and I revamped a lot of the book, put new material in. It was another 50% longer. Sorry about that, but I wanted you to have my latest thoughts about this lifestyle. And it's also a really popular book because it walks you through exactly what you need to know. I've got the empathy triad in there, and empathy dysfunction and empathy territory, all of which appear in my video game as well. And I finally let you know, some people over the years would read the first book and say, oh, I can really relate to Helen because she was the main character in that book, and I would love to meet Helen. Well, you can meet Helen here and the male version on our Facebook and in our groups. But it's the first time I let people know that the book was, I was Helen. I was just revealing some stories in my own life. I had stories from clients and other people too in the book and in my other books. It's not just all about me. But I was very nervous back in 2008 and 2009 when I was getting this book ready to be published. I was very nervous about talking about something that I thought nobody would believe. How many of you have felt that way? Like nobody's going to believe your stories. Like Sandra said, that story about the airline tickets is funny. There's a lot of stories like that. Some people think those stories are funny. They may not realize what you have to live with day in and day out with stories like that. Have you had that experience too, where it just things are happening in your relationships that are unbelievable? It's true. So let me kind of flip this over to the neurodiverse side for a second here. I do tend to dominate the neurotypical side because that's where we started, but neurodiverse folks in these relationships also feel terribly misunderstood and unappreciated and don't have much joy left. And what do they normally do? They pull away. They shut down. They hide from their people. They try to get away from the stress, which of course makes both people feel even more isolated. So this shutdown approach isn't really the way to go either. I noticed Kimberly, she says it seems like neurodivergent people seldom, if ever, make actual connections with their partners. Do you think that is an accurate statement? Is there any real hope of emotional connection? And she says, by the way, I've read your books. Thank you. They have to work hard to make connections because they're listening to your words, not the meaning or the person behind the words. We listen to the meaning. It's why, for example, when apparently there was a glitch in the matrix here and my screen froze and people wondered where I went, right? And then James jumped in and said, oh yeah, it froze for a minute for me too, but then it came back. We're helping each other even on a Facebook Live where you're not meeting face to face. People reach out to connect first to this distress, the distress that my video feed froze, right? I'm going to take this off. I'm getting kind of warm. And that's not so true for the transactional autistic person. They don't necessarily notice that you're distressed, or they do, but they may not be able to read what it's about. In fact, one of my clients figured this out. He said, I do notice that there's all these movements in people's faces. I notice them, I just don't know what they mean. Right? I notice them. See, we're not even consciously noticing that stuff. We just pay attention to it and react. Oh, thank you, Sandra. She says it does take courage to share our lives. The thing is, I thought I had to do it. It was like, there's no point in holding back anymore. There's too many people who need to know that I've had these crazy things happen, not just them. And I'm not just some psychologist over there who figured it out. I figured it out because I'm a neurotypical with an autistic mother, an autistic spouse, and an autistic eldest daughter. So I was surrounded by neurodivergent relationships all of my life, and I was just bewildered. I wanted to know what the heck was going on, so I dug in. But after you've been in these relationships for a while, you get scared, don't you? Right? You get scared. You start feeling like you're disappointing them all the time. And neurodiverse people feel like they're disappointing us too, interestingly. So everybody kind of shuts down in a different way. Neurodiverse people just stop talking, or they go the opposite and they make extreme demands so that you can't do anything except leave the territory. But neurotypicals shut down more emotionally, psychologically. They stop being themselves. They keep getting the message that it's not okay to be me, so they don't know where else to go except to become extremely distressed. So I figured, well, I might as well tell people that's going on with me too, and that you can take your life back. So this is back to Kimberly's comment, is there any hope of emotional connection? Yes, but it starts with you, right? It starts with you taking your life back, being true to yourself, being unwilling to let yourself slip into some transactional yes, no, right, wrong discussion. Not doing it. Because if you're true to yourself, then you're strong enough to create your own life, even if your neurodiverse partner won't join you. But what people find when they get that authentic self back is they find that it makes it easier for their neurodiverse person to hang in there too. They have a lot different work to do. They don't have more work to do than you. They have different work. They have to come to understand that there's a whole world of connecting and communicating that they didn't know about. They often will try to convince me that I'm making it up. How many of you have heard them say things like, chit-chat's a waste of time, or I don't do small talk, or I don't know why you spend 2 hours on the phone with your mother. We spend 2 hours on the phone with mom or a girlfriend because we're connecting. We're having a good conversation. They don't know how to do that, and they think we're making it up. But it's not true. And when they finally understand that we're not making it up, they want to know how to engage. So it won't be the same kind of engagement. Oh, hi, Jen and Amy. Good, you made it. It won't be the same as the easy, comfortable, read between the lines before you say a word connection that you have with other neurotypicals. But love is love. And if a neurodiverse person loves you, the love might come through with their attempts to communicate. It's why the one woman laughed at her partner when he said, oh, that's okay, we can buy refundable tickets. He thought he was being practical. She laughed because she recognized that he was trying to be helpful. He was trying to plan a trip for them to visit her parents. That's kind. So she got it. But the fact that he missed her distress, well, they're going to have to work on that differently. Yeah, exactly. Yes, be true to yourself. Suddenly you can feel free. You're important too. It has to start there. It has to start with loving yourself. In fact, I just did a YouTube for my video game on this. It's called Bless Them, or I think it's something like, I can't remember the titles of my YouTubes, but it's about um, pulling yourself away from the negativity. Stop talking about what's wrong. Stop demanding that the other person get you. Instead, if you can't get through, you just bless them and stay true to yourself. You don't have to criticize or try to drag them into some different reality that they're struggling with, because think about how much we love being dragged anywhere, right? Not really. We don't like that. Let's see here. I'll have a lot more to tell you when I get back next month, because I'm starting to promote the game, and by the way that I'm developing my video game, and I'll be attending the 2025 Games for Change Festival in New York this week. And what's really cool about this is that there are a number of game developers there promoting games to encourage empathic communication, trying to help people learn empathy through a game. Now, you may say that's kind of nutty, but if your skills are not neurotypical, you might learn better through game interaction than with people, which is one of the reasons that neurodiverse people love games so much, and children, because you don't have to anticipate the real person as much. You're free to make mistakes, and it's not going to be held against you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conference. I really am. It's going to be fun. It's at the Parsons School if you want to come. I already have talked a couple of people into signing up. And remember, this is a festival of gamers that are into social change. So their games are to foster awareness of climate change, or, like I said, the empathy, or teaching children, how to more social engagement. This is a series of games and people that really believe that gaming doesn't have to be just simply for pleasure, but if you can infiltrate therapeutic time with joy, don't you think it might be better? Maybe it'll stick with us. Oh, and by the way, you need to watch one of the videos that's about Julie. Since you're here, Julie, I call that one Julie Gets Her Wings. So you might want to go on to my YouTube channel and see the video about Julie getting her wings. It's about conquering one of those stressful things in our neurodivergent relationships. How to stay strong even though there's major problems. Okay, so far, I think, are we about ready to wrap it up? Is there anything else people want to ask or talk about or throw in there? If I've got the dates and times wrong, trust me, they should be properly listed on the calendar. And we just published a calendar for the Thinkific website where you'll find the courses. So that should make it easier for you to find out when these events are too. But they're also posted in Meetup. Right, Julie? Everything's in Meetup. Yeah. Okay. And let's see. Oh, Sandra says she saw the video about Julie. That's great. It is beautiful. It's wonderful, isn't it? I love it. I had so much fun with this. You need to know this is just a riot for me to work with AI and create AI images, and they're pretty fascinating. It's pretty amazing how well it does it. If you know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'll get there. Okay, take care, everybody. I got to go. But have a wonderful week. and I'll fill you in. Oh, the dates are all correct on the meetup and terrific. Oh, good. And thinkific. Okay, good. Thanks for checking, Julie. Never take my word for it. Sometimes I can't even make proper change when I'm paying for my breakfast. Okay, we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.